Hi, I'm William.
And I'm Kat.
So that must mean this is info on the go.
We're answering questions you want to know.
So, Kat, I know this has been something that you've wanted to do ever since we started the podcast. I know it was on your list of things before we ever started recording anything.
Yeah, I had a neighbor that made it once. I was underage and did not get to partake, but I was always curious where it came from, and I got to see like the different stages of it, which I thought was really cool, and the different little apparatuses they have. Um, and then especially after I like watched Vikings or any kind of timepiece show, and it's always mentioned.
Well, I can tell you, after researching and doing this with you and before this recording, I didn't know a whole lot about this subject, and I really want to try this after this. So,
Me too, because I still haven't tried it.
all right. So, Kat, why don't you tell us what we're talking about today?
So we're talking about mead. It's one of the world's oldest alcoholic beverages, with a history that dates back as far as 40,000 years. It may have originated in Africa, where early humans accidentally fermented honey from bees that lived in hollowed out trees.
So, today on Info on the Go, we're talking about mead. I guess we should first start off with what mead is. So, mead, also called honey wine or hydrol, is an alcoholic beverage made by fermenting honey mixed with water. It can sometimes have added ingredients such as fruits, spices, grains, or hops. So, and here we're going to say you should really check out our episode on honey.
Yeah. The alcoholic content of mead typically ranges from about 3.5% alcohol by volume to over 20%, which is a huge gap. Uh, as one of the oldest known alcoholic beverages, mead is distinguished by having the majority of its fermentable sugar derived from honey. It can also be carbonated or naturally sparkling. Contrary to popular belief, mead is not exclusively sweet. It can also be dry or semi-sweet.
I guess it really just depends on how much honey you put in it, right?
Right, right. Well, I
Uh,
mean, and now today it's more of a science too.
it- this is true. This is true. Mead infused with spices is known as metheglin, while mead with fruit is called melomel. Although the term honey wine is sometimes used interchangeably with mead, wine is traditionally defined as a fermented product of grapes or a Pacific fruit. Some cultures, however, distinct honey wine have distinct honey wines. For example, Hungarian honey wine is made by fermenting honey sweetened pomace from grapes or other fruits.
It's widely believed to predate both agriculture and ceramic pottery in the Neolithic area, which is crazy.
That is
Uh,
insane.
we were fermenting alcohol before we were even making bread. Okay.
So I have a question for you here. So how are you, I guess, hollowed out trees? Never mind. We answered it in the beginning. Because
Right.
I was going to say, if you don't have ceramic pottery, how do you make mead?
Right. Well, they were just finding it in hollowed out trees, man.
There you go.
This early discovery is attributed to the natural occurrence of fermentation and the global distribution of eusocial honey producing insects. Because of the likelihood of independent discoveries or knowledge transfer among early humans before recorded history, pinpointing the exact origin of mead is challenging.
Yeah. So with the advent of ceramic pottery and the increasing use of fermentation to preserve surplus crops, mead began appearing more clearly in the archaeological record. Um, Pottery from northern China, dating back to at least 7000 BCE, contains chemical evidence of honey, rice, and fermented related organic compounds. You know, I'm wondering if they had rice wine and honey wine.
Oh, right. I don't know.
That's a good question.
Hmm. The earliest known written reference to mead might be Soma, mentioned in the Rig Veda, which was around 17,000 to 1100 BCE, a sacred text of the Vedic religion and later Hinduism. Since the Rig Veda predates the Indo-Iranian split around 2000 BCE, the reference may trace back to the Western steppe or Eastern Europe. The Abri, a subgroup of the Talanti, were noted by ancient Greek writers for their method of making mead. During Greece's Golden Age, mead was said to be a favored drink.
Uh, Aristotle around about 384 BCE, to 322 BCE, discussed mead from Illyria in
Illyria.
Illyria. Oh, that is an I in it.
Mhm.
And meteorologic, meteor
Meteorologica.
meteorologica. Is that a place in meteorologic, or is that? I guess that's works. Um, with um, Pliny the Elder, referred to mead as militus in his Naturalis Historia, distinguishing it from honey-sweetened wine. And around 60 CE, the Roman agricultural writer Camilla provided a recipe for mead in De Rustica. I hope I said that right.
Take rainwater stored for several years and mix 1 sextarius of this water with a Roman pound of honey. For a lighter mead, use 1 sextarius of water with 9 ounces of honey. Expose the mixture to the sun for 40 days, then place it near the fire. If rainwater is unavailable, boil spring water instead.
So rainwater stored for several years. Well, that's going to be
So
it's
that's a
going to
hard
have a
find.
it's going to have a kick. But I have a question for you. What is a sectarius?
Sextarius was a Roman unit of measurement for both liquids and dry goods. It was a key component of the Roman measurement system. It was equivalent to about half a liter or 16 ounces.
Okay, now I know what a sectarius is. Next time I have like a 2 cups of coffee or something, I'll be like I'm having a sectarius of coffee,
Yes, exactly,
and
exactly.
then people can look at me like I'm weird. Um, In ancient Greece and Egypt, mead was a symbol of prosperity and divine blessings. In Celtic mythology, rivers of mead were said to exist in the afterlife. Man, I bet that would be a nice place.
Yeah, I want to go.
The ancient Greek writer Pythagoras described a drink made from grain and honey resembling mead, which he encountered during his travels in Thule. This drink may have been an early version of Welsh metheglin. When 12-year-old Prince Charles II visited Wales in 1642, Welsh metheglin was served at a feast, symbolizing Wales's cultural contribution to evolving British identity during the period between the Union of the Crowns and the establishment of the Kingdom of Great Britain.
A reference to mead cup appears in the Old English epic Beowulf, where Danish warriors are depicted drinking mead. Mead and its association with warriors and feasting is also celebrated in Celtic and Germanic poetry. The Welsh bard Taliesin, who lived around 550 CE, is credited with a poem called Canu y Med, or Song of Mead. In mythology, mead was also linked to divine inspirations such as the mead of poetry.
We can all picture the Viking, or I mean, these people sitting around these tables like in Beowulf, drinking mead, right?
Yes.
Um, in medieval Ireland, mead was a popular beverage. Beekeeping, introduced around the 5th century, traditionally credited to Saint Macamomonach,
Hmm.
Monarch, Saint Madamoch, brought mead making with it. A banquet hall on the hill of Tara was known as Tech Med Chatara, House of the Circling of Mead, and mead was often infused with hazelnuts.
Hmm.
Mead is also featured with Irish legends such as those of children of Lure,
Lear.
Lear, okay, and in the Tales of Saints. I don't know about mead infused with hazelnuts.
I would have to try it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something to try, but I don't know. It would have like a nutty flavor.
You're not too keen on nutty flavors.
Well, I don't know.
Over time, mead's popularity waned as it was increasingly replaced with other alcoholic beverages made from cheaper, more readily available fermentable sugars. Taxation and regulations on alcoholic ingredients further contributed to its decline, making commercial mead a relatively obscure drink until its recent revival. However, some monasteries preserved the tradition of mead making as a byproduct of beekeeping, particularly in regions where grape cultivation was not feasible.
Hey, you know what? We forgot to mention the Vikings. You know that they were mead masters. Thinking of mead, you see castles and Vikings, and you see Viking brewing traditions. Huh.
Right. The Vikings brewed both strong and weak varieties of beer and mead, each tailored for different purposes. Weak beer, often used as a substitute for water, served as a thirst quencher and was even considered appropriate for children. I mean, it's almost not quite as different as kids
Hey,
drinking soda these days,
well,
right?
just think if you were around in that time, you wouldn't have had to watch your neighbor drink mead and not be able to partake.
Right. In contrast, stronger brews were reserved for adults and saved for special occasions, symbolizing their value of being metaphorically placed on the top shelf.
So, all right, so you give the kids the stuff, the cheap stuff, and the stuff
Right.
on the, like the best stuff on the top shelf, that's for the adults.
Right, right.
Or for special occasions, I guess, huh?
Right.
Feasting and celebratory gatherings were central to Viking culture. These events were to mark a successful raid, a harvest festival, or any communal achievement, showcased the importance of mead. However, due to the high cost of honey, mead was a luxury, often saved for the most significant celebrations.
The legend of Kvasio, a figure born of divine origins, was created in an extraordinary peace ritual between the rival Norse gods and Aesir and Vanir as a symbol of unity. They each contributed saliva into a shared vessels from which Kvassia emerged. He's said to embody the collective knowledge and wisdom of both godly factions.
So he's born from saliva.
Mm,
Sounds interesting guy.
yes.
Casfia, is that how you're saying it? Casfia? Casfia? Okay. Dedicated his life to sharing his vast knowledge with anyone willing to listen, traveling far and wide as a teacher. Tragically, his life ended when two dwarfs, Fajar and Gilhar, I said Dar, Gilhar, murdered him. The dwarfs drained his blood and mixed it with honey, creating the fabled mead of poetry, a magical elixir that bestowed Kesvar's knowledge and wisdom upon anyone who would drink it.
The legend of Odin, one of the most renowned gods in Norse mythology, is revered as the god of war, death, and wisdom. Known by many titles, including King of Asgard, patron of rulers, and the One-Eyed All-Father, Odin sacrificed one of his eyes in Mimir's well to gain unparalleled insight into the world. Which, I mean, if anybody's played the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that makes a lot more sense too.
Okay, I have to check that out. I I hadn't played it, but I will. I'll check it out.
I like it. It's really good. It's one of my favorites.
Okay. Odin's thirst for knowledge led him to make further sacrifices, including hanging himself from the Yg- Yggdrasil tree.
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil tree, and we even talked about this before recording. That's what's so
Yes.
bad.
Yes. And
It,
it's there.
it's the why that throws me off the Yggdrasil tree. Uh, so he sacrificed himself in the Yggdrasil tree. He hanged himself from the Yggdrasil tree.
Impaled.
And then he impaled himself on a spear for several days. This dramatic ritual granted him immense magical powers and the wisdom he sought. Among his newfound abilities were healing the sick, controlling storms, inspiring love, and uncovering hidden truths. Odin could also send his soul into other beings, both human and animal, allowing him to travel great distances. So, inspiring love, I mean, kind of like Cupid, maybe.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. We would definitely have to look more into the Norse mythology for that.
Well, I'm just thinking about our Valentine's show, and I was like, oh, Cupid.
Right, right.
Anyway, all right, on.
So Odin's fondness for mead was well documented. It was said to be one of his preferred drinks alongside wine. In Norse mythology, warriors who died honorably in battle and were welcomed into Valhalla were greeted with mead as their reward, a fitting drink for those who sacrificed everything in Odin's name.
While mead in mythology was tied to rituals, divine saliva, and even blood. Modern times have thankfully refined its image. Today, mead is a carefully crafted, honey-based alcoholic beverage that can be enjoyed alongside home-cooked meals, far removed from its mythological origins, yet still steeped in rich culinary history.
In medieval Europe, mead was a key part of marriage traditions, with newlyweds drinking it to boost fertility. The term honeymoon comes from this tradition. So, why don't you take on the fermentation process of mead?
All right. That was a pretty good fact, though, the honeymoon. I didn't know that. That's
Me
good.
either.
Yeah. Meads typically ferment at temperatures similar to those used in winemaking, with yeast strains often identical to those employed by producing white wines. The alcoholic content of mead is determined by measuring its specific gravity before and throughout the fermentation process, using tools such as a hydrometer and a refractometer. Given the variety of mead styles, diverse production methods are employed. However, most techniques are rooted in traditional winemaking practices. A common step is racking, transferring the mead into a secondary container for further fermentation. Larger commercial producers sometimes conduct both primary and secondary fermentation in the same vessel. I don't know. Racking serves two primary purposes: separating the mead from the dead yeast cells and allowing it to clarify. Cloudiness in mead can result from suspended yeast, protein molecules, or um, pac- pectin from fruit. You know, I used to make a lot of wine, and I'm here to tell you, I don't transferring it from one container to the next is probably the best way to get rid of a lot of those particles.
I bet. I bet. Cloudy mead can be clarified through cold breaking, which involves chilling the mead overnight. Meads typically ferment at temperatures similar to those used in winemaking, with yeast strains often identical to those employed in producing white wines.
Primary fermentation typically lasts 28 to 56 days. Really depends on, what kind of yeast you're using and what your vat's like. After which the must is transferred to a secondary fermentation vessel for aging, which can range from 6 to 9 months. The duration of both fermentation stages can vary significantly depending on factors such as origin and sugar content of the honey, water to honey ratio, pH levels, additives used, and your yeast strains.
What is mead must?
That's a great question. So the mead must is the unfermented mixture of honey, water, and other ingredients used to make the mead.
Mm. So, while some studies have tested adding non nitrogen based salts or vitamins to the must to enhance mead quality, no evidence suggests that these micronutrients reduce fermentation time or improve quality. However, cell immobilization methods have proven effective in enhancing the mead quality of mead.
And, at the top of the show, we talked about honey wine. So there is a difference in honey wine and mead in today's markets. Honey wine is a type of mead, and the terms are often used interchangeably. Mead is a broader category that includes many styles of sweetness levels. Honey wine is an alcoholic beverage made by fermenting honey. Honey wine can also refer to wine that has been sweetened with honey. So if you're wanting mead, true mead, you got to make sure you're looking at those labels and asking those questions, right?
Right.
Mead is an alcoholic beverage made by fermenting honey and water with yeast. Mead can also include spices, grains, and hops or fruits.
So, how do they taste? Mead can range from sweet to dry depending on the fermentation process. Wine can have a variety of flavors, including fruity, acidic, and earthy notes. Variations of mead: metheglin is mead that contains spices, whereas melomel is mead that contains fruit. Tej, which is a traditional Ethiopian honey wine that uses gesho instead of yeast for fermentation. Gesho or Ramis prinoidis,
Or notice.
prinoidis
Yeah.
is an evergreen shrub from East Africa, traditionally used for the treatment of illnesses including atopic dermatitis, ear, nose, and throat infections, pneumonia, arthritis, brucellosis, flu, indigestion, and fatigue.
I think that's the kind of mead I want to try.
Right? The
It's co-
medicinal kind.
it's covering all your bases, man. Um, Geisha adds a unique flavor and bitterness to the wine. Tija is moderately stronger than traditional mead with an alcohol content of 7 to 11% alcohol by volume compared to the 3.5, which is about average for traditional mead. It's sweet, cloudy, and bubbly, but has a bitter aftertaste. I still want to try it though. I still want to try it.
Same.
If you want to learn more about mead or honey wine, there is a lot out there. I can assure you there's a lot out there.
I believe it. Um, I know that I believe Dylan and Cole Sprouse started a mead company. I'm not really sure. I do know they started out like selling alcohol. Dylan and Cole Sprouse were from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody on the Disney Channel, in case you didn't know.
I didn't know. I was going to ask, who are they?
Yeah.
I know when I was doing research, I come across these different websites that offered different types of honey wines, and I am going to be on the lookout for mead. I want the honey water yeast infused mead. I don't want the honey wine or wine that's sweetened with mead. I want to try it. I'm wanting to try it.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, I guess I know how you felt when I brought the tractor episodes to you. Because when you brought me mead, I was like, is there going to be enough to do a whole show on mead? And
Right.
then when we got into it, I was like, okay, this is a lot more interesting than I thought. And
Right. And
hopefully I had the same impact on you on Alice Chandler's.
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
All
And
right.
not only that, you didn't even know really what mead was.
I honestly and truly didn't. When I asked you and you was like, you told me, I was like,
It's
okay,
the
so,
oldest alcohol there is.
and to be made with, it's already got two of my favorite things in it, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's all I've got, Kat.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
William and I want to thank you for listening.
Yes, we want to thank you, and we want to thank all of our newcomers too, uh,
Yes.
and all of those that have been with us up until this episode. We want to thank you as well.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
absolutely, from both of us, thank you.
Hmm.
Like and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Till next time.
Stay curious.